So we've got to think, I can't take this personally as an attack on me and who I am, but I can take it as a learning for how I should change things up for my clients or the differences I should make in how I work.
Mentoring with Geraldine is a bite-sized practitioner podcast for naturopaths, nutritionists, herbalists, coaches, and practitioners. This podcast responds directly to the needs of you, the practicing natural therapist. We have interviews during the holiday season and business and mindset support each week, so you'll get the variety you need to enjoy and stay motivated in your practice. Don't forget to subscribe to receive the weekly episodes. And if you want to connect with me, always check the show notes because that's where you'll find the links to book appointments and, of course, to join the Academy, the membership group where there's constant connection and community with like-minded practitioners. Now, let's get started.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Mentoring with Geraldine and the Bite Size Podcast. How the devil are you? So last week, I very quickly touched on the client ghosting you and realized that I would have been going totally off-piste if I'd talked about that. And I only skied for 2 seasons, by the way, off-piste. It's not really something that, it's just a line I use. Not really something I get up to these days. But it is something that I thought, that needs its own podcast. Because when we think, we've reflected on the client, that's what I was talking about last week. We've reflected, we've really thought about it, we've gone through everything we've done with them, and then they don't turn up. And you're like, excuse me? Where are you? Now, when we get them to pay in advance, we do have a reduction in ghosting, okay? Because they've paid, so they come. If you're taking the money each time, so it's sometimes worth taking the money before the next appointment. When we take, maybe I should be talking about money as well. Have I talked about that lately? That's a different one. I'm going to write it down. I'm going to write that down and we'll do it next time. Money, appointments, we'll do that next time. I don't know why I managed to remember ghosting last time without writing it down, but I did. So if we're taking money at this appointment for the next appointment, then we're less likely for them to ghost us because they've paid. But what might happen instead is they rebook or, they move the appointment. Sorry, I can't come. I have to reschedule. And then you're not really getting to the bottom of it. You're not really helping them because they're just rescheduling their appointment. Now, there's a number of reasons why this can happen. Okay. So we have to understand it from our perspective and from the client's perspective. Yep, it could be you. It could be the way you're speaking to your client. It certainly used to be with me. I would give them too much information, way too much information. And then they'd feel that they had all the information or they couldn't process all the information. And they said that to me. They said, you gave me so much information, I don't feel I need to come back. All right. You're like, well, you're not going to do it all though, are you? Because you're not being coached to do it. So that was when I did my first coaching course because I thought I'm doing this wrong. I'm speaking to people wrong. So you can buy a coaching course off me much cheaper than the coaching course that I bought. Mine cost thousands. Anyway, and you can do it for much cheaper than that. So we have to think of it from us. So that's why we're reflecting on our practice. We're reflecting on our appointments, which I've talked about over the last few. So now we have to look at it from their perspective. Why is it that they're ghosting us? Have we given them too much information? Are we expecting too much of them? Is it something deeper with them? Is it for them a trauma response? What have we touched on in that appointment that has made them suddenly sort of scuttle away, to back away and to disappear? Do they feel really vulnerable in what you're asking them to do? Again, we have to reflect on our practice. What have we asked them to do? What is it that some clients say, I have to reschedule because I haven't done anything you've asked them. I've not done anything you've asked me. Now, I used to get a lot of that. I don't get that. After I changed the way I worked, I didn't get that anymore. But when they're saying that, that is almost a trauma response. They haven't done it. Why haven't they done it? What were your expectations? What were their expectations at the end of the appointment? What were we asking them to do? Was it just too much? Was it too much change? Asking someone to go from 4 colas to 3-in-1 kombucha or 3-in-1 agreed on other drink, they're not going to ghost you on that one. They're going to give it a go, and then they're going to come back and they're going to say, nah, didn't like it. Didn't like any of the kombuchas, even though there's 100 different brands in the supermarket now. I didn't like any of them. So I've got 2 colas and a carbonated orange now instead or something. You'd be like, oh, okay. But they might just tell you that on the phone. Nah, couldn't do it. But I've done the other things. It was just that one I couldn't do. And you'd be like, okay. So easy solve. You're not going to ghost me on that. But if we've asked them to do something far greater than that, it might be that we've asked them to, I don't know, take up eating breakfast when they don't, and go to bed earlier. That might be one for ghosting. Go to bed earlier. It seems so simple. And yet for some people that is so hard. And so their trauma response is not to come back. So where is the problem rooted? What started that off? We've asked them to go to bed earlier, and they can't go to bed earlier because their whole life they shared their parents' bed or a sibling's bed, and now they're in bed alone and they can't go to sleep without someone else there. You don't know this. This isn't something they've shared with you. So asking them to go to bed earlier, you've hit an impossible roadblock for that person. And so they've ghosted you. And yet it's something so simple, but it's a trauma response for them. Okay. So we have to think about, why have they ghosted? What is this background? How am I going to get this from the person? It might be that you have to have a telephone conversation with the person because they may feel shamed or fearful, turned up and they're morbidly obese, for example. And it might be that they had to come out the house to see you and they never leave the house. So it was so traumatic leaving the house. They felt shamed by people looking at them as they walked into your office or whatever it is. Or fear of, she wants me to have bloods taken and I hate needles, having not expressed to you that they have a needle phobia. Finally, you get the needle phobia out them and so you're like, okay, well, we'll do hair analysis and we'll try and work with that. We can do heavy metal testing. We can do an HTMA. We could do some of these others that aren't going to give us the current status, but they're certainly going to give us your excretory values. So that's going to give us some knowledge. And so we're going to be able to work with some of those things and hopefully write some stuff, thus avoiding the needle. Or if we have to have those bloods, we find the practice that has a hypnotherapist on staff that does hypnotherapy while taking bloods, or, you know, they go to a clinic that specializes in people with phobia, for example. We have to think, what can we do? They've got shame or they've got fear. What is it? And how can we work around this? When people are ghosting us, sometimes we need them to come sooner. Oh, I can't see you. I haven't had my bloods done yet. That's okay. We don't need your bloods done for you to have your appointment. I'd really like you to keep your appointment. Oh, well, I've actually, I've got a thing on that day. How about the day before? How about you come sooner? Let's not push it outward. Let's bring it forward. Let's bring it closer. And, I hadn't thought of that. Oh, actually, okay. Because, you've overcome no, we don't need the bloods right now. We can work on other things. At the end of the day, in my career of over 20 years, I've probably had less than half a dozen people who had a perfect diet, whose diet I've looked at and gone, wow, I wish I was this good. They are so few and far between. There's always work that we can do with people on their diet. So you get them back in. A lot of people, they've had that lack of progress. I did talk last week about that plateau. We're plateauing, your client's plateaued. What are you going to do? Their lack of progress will stall their motivation. So we have to change it up slightly. We have to think of something else. We have to do something slightly different with them. We have to figure out something that resonates with them because they've thought that it would be quicker than it really is. We have to get them to understand maybe the skin hasn't changed as much as they expected, but like red blood cells, there's a turnover time. So we've got to wait for that new skin to come through, things like that. So it's the discussion, it's the understanding for them of what the problem underlying is, without people haven't got the time, the energy, or the desire to know the full anatomy and physiology of the majority of things. All right. So we don't have to do a full hour's anatomy and physiology on the thyroid for someone with a thyroid issue. They simply, judging how much information to give them, because they can go and look that up online. They really can. And you can say to them, why don't you look up what's going on with the thyroid online so you understand the anatomy and physiology of thyroid? And they'll tell you then and there, oh no, I don't want to do that. Or no, I hate blood and guts. I don't want to see any of that. Just tell me what I've got to do. So these are some of that's how we learn about our client. I mean, I gave a full anatomy lesson to my father because he had emphysema. So I taught him about the cilia and how we cough and all of the stuff that goes on with the lungs because he had no understanding. And then at the end of my drawing and discussion, I had my mother, my sister, and my father staring at me with their jaws dropped open. And I was like, why are you all looking at me like that? Oh my God, have I given you too much information? What have I done wrong? And they were like, no, we just didn't know that this is what we needed to know. That's amazing that you know all this stuff. And I'm like, okay, I'm giving out too much information because these are the people who love me and they're going, wow, at my knowledge, but are they actually learning anything? Reflecting again on the discussion. So what have we got? What have I already talked about? I've already talked about maybe the trauma response from our client. That's why they're ghosting us. Maybe they have fear or shame around what's going on, so they don't feel that they could continue, that they are doing the right thing. And remember that fear and shame can also be financial. It could be societal. Like I said, they feel being watched. There could be other related issues of other people at home saying things to them. People like things to stay the same. And often when you see someone who's morbidly obese, they're often with someone who's skinny, and that skinny person could be described perhaps as a feeder. They're the ones, in a way, who are creating that ongoing problem because they're not supporting change. They want the status quo. And so we have to think about what are these other factors outside of what we can see in this short time with this client. We talked about lack of progress, talked about that last week as well. External factors. Have we gone over all of those? I think I just did, haven't we? Financial constraints, stressors, and life changes. A client right at the beginning, she came to see me twice, I think, and we hadn't really made any progress, to be perfectly honest. And then she was on for a third appointment. And the second appointment, she'd come really late because I think she'd cycled to the first one. The second one, she had a car and it broke down. She ended up walking the rest of the way. Then the third one, she was just a no-show, ghost, couldn't find her, zero happening. And then she'd gone to something or other interstate in this car that had broken down, and it ended up being broken down coming, and this is like 15, 20 years ago. So she was broken down interstate. Then like 3 days later, she contacted me. She'd been camping by the side of the road, waiting for somebody to come along to give her a tow. Life changes. And then I'd left a message like, where are you sort of thing, because I'd had to message her on the other times. And I don't think my message was just like, look, if you're not into it, don't worry. And so she was like, no, I won't come back. And I was like, oh, yeah, well, you're stuck for 3 days. You're camping by your car. I mean, that was a me thing as well as a her thing. She always struggled to get to me. Honestly, she probably couldn't afford it anyway. So I ended up emailing her a lot of information and hoping that that was the way she could then deal with some of the things she had to deal with rather than paying me for appointments, which she obviously couldn't really afford. So, how are we going to respond to each of these clients? Every single one is a different situation, isn't it? Each person, it's always unique. All of our clients are very unique, aren't they? Because they always come to us after they've done everything else. After they've tried everything else, they then come to us. So we've got to be careful. Like this girl, I jumped to conclusions with her, and we've got to be really careful that we don't jump to conclusions because life just throws curveballs all the time. It can be really difficult for us. Just stuff happens, doesn't it? So we don't want to jump to conclusions. We don't want to reach out excessively to them. We do want to reach out, but I message initially, generally, when somebody doesn't turn up, and I will ring them. I will get on the phone and ring them. But we need to give them space to process their decision, but we also need to know why they're not coming. So that's why I try to ring if I can. We do have to maintain that professional distance, though, and that professional demeanor, don't we? So when we speak to them, we want to avoid any judgment or pressure on them. It's just purely a fact-finding mission. If they contact, I'm not going to make it and I need to reschedule, what's going on? How can I help? We can actually have your appointment right now on the phone. I've met you in person, so we can now go to the phone call system if you want to. So we need to maintain that professional demeanor, that professional behavior, with that client. And if we do move it, remember that idea, move it forward, not back, so we can find out what's going on. We can also offer a termination session. That's something more related to coaching than to natural therapies, but that offer is out there. So it's just a really brief, when somebody leaves a job, they have a termination interview of why they're leaving the job. And it's a very similar situation, and people can sort of relate to it in that way. Is, I just want to know what's going on so that I can reflect on my own practice and improve my business. If we just have a really quick chat about what's going on and why you're not coming back to see me. And then we might find out that we're actually the wrong person in the first place, and they should have been, they've got these sore legs that have gone through this whole system, and they actually needed an occupational therapist. They actually needed somebody to come and refit their home, and we weren't what they needed. So we've got to think about, what can we learn from every situation that we're in? We need to focus on their needs. I mean, do they need us? Are we access to their requirements? Or is that access to requirements, they can't afford us? Is there a different way we can serve their needs if it is financial? And we have to look after ourselves through all of this. We have to look after our emotions, that empathy bucket. We have to look after us as the practitioner and not go too deeply into that rabbit hole. I think I've told this story on here before. Long ago, I had a client who came to see me, and she had rosacea, and she came to see me with rosacea, but all of she had like 5 problems, right? So I can't remember what they all were, but there were 5 of them. So she had like rosacea, she had high blood pressure. Those 2 I remember offhand. There might have been a bit of weight she wanted to lose. I can't really remember. There might be a hormonal sweat thing. Can't really remember. But there were 5. The reason I remember there were 5 was because she phoned to cancel. She said, I'm not coming to see you anymore. And I was like, oh, okay. Can you tell me why? And she said, well, I'm not getting anywhere. I'm not making any improvement. Hang on. I was like, well, we've got your blood pressure down. She said, oh, well, yes, you've done that. You've done that. Gut problem. There would have been a gut problem. So I said, but we've sorted your guts out. I think she was constipated, actually. Gosh, I'm remembering more about her. We've got you going to the toilet every single day. Well, yes, she said, And I said, and there's this other thing, we've resolved that. And she's like, oh, well, yes, okay, yes, well, yes, you have helped me. Actually, you've helped me quite a lot. Okay, you have helped me. And so by the time I got to number 5 thing, and 5 thing being rosacea, by the time I got to number 5, and I was like, so, and I've done that thing as well, whatever it was. And she said, yes, but you haven't helped my rosacea. That's the same. Now, if right at the beginning of the whole conversation with her, on the very first appointment, if I had not just said to her, rosacea is really difficult, but also reiterated that rosacea is an end product of so many other things and often cannot be resolved by just any means. We laser them, we do all sorts of things with rosacea. It's not just a naturopathy component or a nutrition component. There's a huge component with rosacea, and stress is one of the biggest parts of it. If we can go through all of these things, we need to resolve all the other things, and rosacea will get there. Hopefully, we'll see that achievement, but we might not as well. But all of the other things need resolving. Then she might not have phoned me really grumpy to say, oh, I didn't achieve anything, it didn't work. And then at the end of our conversation, after my going, but I did help you with that, and her going, oh, well, okay, yeah. And her saying yes and agreeing I had helped her, but I hadn't resolved the one thing that she had really come to see me about. So we've got to be really conscious of our client, what their goals are, why they're coming to see us, what it is that is holding them seeing you as well. Okay, so their needs. We've got to think of our needs, we've got to think of their needs. We can't take all of this personally either. We have to be judgmental of ourselves, yes, and that we have to be critical, but critical in a positive way. I missed this major thing that was wrong with the client, rosacea, as I thought I'd explained, but clearly hadn't, how hard it is to deal with rosacea, how difficult it is, and how multifactorial and multimodality it is. And I am a small part of that huge cog of rosacea. Ultimately, I didn't take it personally because I'd resolved all the other things for her. And I don't think she took it personally either. At the end of it, she was happy with the resolution that she got for the other problems. I think she's my only I've had 3 successful significant blood pressure reductions. So we've got to think, I can't take this personally as an attack on me and who I am, but I can take it as a learning for how I should change things up for my clients or the differences I should make in how I work. And we need to document ghostings as well. I think I'm going to finish there on the documentation. I think, oh, I've got a willy wagtail in the garden. How lovely. Sorry, slight aside there. It's very cute. We've got to document everything that we do. So they've ghosted us. We've tried contacting them. We can't get hold of them. We've tried ringing them. There was no reply. The appointment is cancelled but paid for. We've messaged them to say that the appointment is paid for, has been cancelled, and that money will be held for them for an appointment up to X date. Give it 6 months or 4 months or something. That appointment money has to be used within the next 3 months, and that should be part of your T's and C's. So make sure your T's and C's do reflect cancellations, ghostings. What is it? How are you going to give refunds? If you're going to give a refund in this situation, generally you don't. If you've taken the money, you wouldn't need to refund it because it is their choice not to come back. They've chosen to pay you and not see you, but they need to know that they can only use that money within X length of time, because what you don't want is to say, well, you've got an open appointment and they finally are ready to see you. They finally think to themselves, yeah, I'm ready to do those things. And it's 5 years down the line and you're actually retiring. And then it's like, well, I paid you. And you're like, yeah, you paid me $75 10 years ago and your appointment is now $195. It's a bit different. We're not in the same intellectual postcode anymore. It's not happening. So they need to know that that will only last, that follow-up appointment cost only lasts for another 3 months or whatever it is. Yeah, you need to record the client's termination of appointments and any attempts you make to re-engage with them and the follow-up. And, whether you email them that information, emailing them the information is probably the best way of doing it, because you can say then, this is the structure. If you don't do it within 3 months, this is the loss of your money, blah, blah, blah. So I hope that this has helped today. I'm going to leave it there and look after yourself. Enjoy the rest of your day. Don't do anything I wouldn't do, which leaves everything pretty open. So have a good one and I'll catch up with you soon. See ya.
Thanks so much for joining me today. Don't forget to rate, review, and subscribe to the podcast for the weekly episodes. If you'd like even more support and learning, then the Academy is for you. Here you'll find part 2 of the herbal discussions, more clinical learning, and case studies to support your clients in practice. Bye for now.